This orc does not appear Mexican. This person doesn't look Mexican. Reminiscent of mariachi attire, but not Mexican. Also not Mexican. As a Mexican myself, let me tell you what I think about this. Hey yo adventurers, this is Derek. Okay, I'm super late to this party, but today we're going to be talking about the Mexican orcs. And since I am Mexican, I believe I may have something relevant to say about this subject. I just got this book, the 2024 re-edition of Dungeons & Dragons 5.5, 6th edition, however you're gonna call it. And in page 195, you find this infamous image of what has been dubbed the Mexican orcs. I also have it right here for you to see and judge, just like I did, because I had seen the images, but I have some stuff to say about this. Okay, for context, I may make some unverified claims, correct if I'm getting something wrong. It's very difficult to research what I am going to say next, but mainly in places like Twitter, well now X, Reddit, Facebook. At some point in the last few years, people started to make some very strange claim. And this claim was, and I am just quoting, paraphrasing what I saw, okay? I'm going to be speaking crazy for a few minutes. They claimed that orcs were in some way a representation of black people, or some people said that in particular African Americans. I found this an atrocious take, but some people were saying it. So I tried to track down where this came from, and I just couldn't find it. I couldn't find a source, or I couldn't find any evidence that this claim has any weight. The way I see it, some person or group of people made this connection in their minds with no real evidence that orcs were supposed to represent black people. They made the connection, they assumed it was real, and then they just started tweeting about it and then posting it on Facebook, posting it on YouTube. They just started spewing this viewpoint as if it were true. Now, that's one side of the equation. The other side, the opposition, they made the counter argument that if anything, orcs were meant to be the Mongols. Apparently, J.R.R. Tolkien, that's what he intended or something, but that's who's to say that Wizards of the Coast wanted to keep that. The other argument they used to defend this position, the opposition, was to confront the other side by saying, if you make this connection in your mind, you are the racist one for making this connection that has no base. Who's to know, right? And this went on probably for years. I don't even know, like, it's just one of those crazy debates that I see on the internet. I just ignore it because it appears it has no base. I also have no dog in this fight. I live in Mexico, so the cultural differences, and I really don't know. However, I couldn't find any evidence that that was the case, and I don't make that connection myself. The first time I heard it, that was crazy. However, that became more relevant last year when they published. Why? Because of the infamous picture on page 195. So they released this, and they have in this page what people started to call the Mexican orcs. And I will speak about the Mexicanity of this picture later when I give you my opinion on it. So they released this. Like, I think no one said it outright, like in a single paragraph, but this is what I think was the train of thought of these people. So they imagined that Wizards of the Coast, that's what they intended, that orcs were black people. And then people started calling them out. So someone at Wizards panicked. Someone panicked, and then they were like, oh no, they caught us. They caught us red-handed because we really wanted to portray orcs as this group. And now that they caught us, we have to distract them with something different. And so this is apparently the theory that they chose Mexicans to be the fall guys for this. For some reason, they were like so panicked not to be perceived as racist. So they chose another ethnic group to base the orcs off to not be racist. This is where the logic starts to fall. And I don't think all this theory holds any water. Like, I don't think Wizards really were trying to make a connection between orcs and black people. I think no one really wanted that. However, they appear to be very worried about what people think. The perception of whatever Wizards of the Coast does, that matters to them. So if a lot of people started to say that orcs were somehow a representation of black people, I get why they would reframe orcs in a different way. First of all, they dropped the half orcs because this page, the orc, and you can see it here, the orc traits, this is something your character can do. Before it was a half orc, but now they dropped half orcs completely, and I get that. Okay, half orcs, they never should have been part of the game for reasons I will not mention in this video. So they chose to just move the orcs from the monster manual to the player's handbook. And now they are a character race, and now they are not inherently evil. I find that problematic because I think a game about beating monsters needs a few monsters that are inherently evil, just like Tolkien wanted for The Lord of the Rings. I think there's nothing wrong about that, except at some point orcs became humanized, I guess. And at some point they make a decision of how to portray them, in this page in particular. If it's true that Wizards was worried about the perception of people that thought that they were racist, then it would make sense that they would reframe the orcs. However, they could have reframed them as whatever they wanted. It makes no sense that they would choose to portray them as Mexicans. Maybe from an inclusivity standpoint, that they wanted to have some Mexican representation in the book, and it could have been any race or species, as they're called now. It could have been any species. We could have had some Mexican elves or some Goliath elves or some orc elves. And maybe it was just a random decision that they chose the orcs for this picture in particular to be some form of Mexican representation. I don't think that's what we're seeing here, and I will break down what we see in this picture in a moment. In my opinion, people are saying crazy stuff on the internet. I'm trying to place myself in the middle ground of all this. I think it's also important to mention that the book is not consistent about the orcs having this Mexican look to them. Like I searched the whole book for every page where an orc is shown, and the Mexicanity of it only happens on this page. And let me show you what I found. Here on page 73, with the cleric subclasses, there is this character. Now, I have to admit, I am not sure if this is an orc or a Goliath. And I had this problem many times with the book. Maybe because we cannot see the fangs. Maybe this is not an orc, so I'm crazy maybe. On page 86, we have this cleric subclass. I think this is the Circle of the Moon, and we have an orc here. And this orc does not appear Mexican. On page 105, there is a monk subclass that depicts this orc woman. However, this could be a Goliath too, so maybe I'm crazy here again, but this person does not look Mexican. Then on page 108, there is a full art for the paladin, which also depicts a full armored orc warrior paladin. Doesn't look Mexican. Here we also have the Fey Wanderer subclass with what appears to be an orc bard. I mean, maybe you could say not Mexican. I find the attire reminiscent of mariachi attire, but here again I would say not Mexican. Then there is a large portion of the book that has spells and equipment. There's no characters there. And then here we see another orc woman at the table on page 285, also not Mexican. Okay, so now back to page 195, back to the real culprit of all this debacle. The Mexican orcs are here. As a Mexican myself, let me tell you what I think about this. Let me resize the image. I've got here the Mexican orcs on full display, and to be honest, it doesn't give me Mexican vibes, like not all of it. The little child in the forefront who's wearing a poncho, he kinda looks Mexican. The woman to his right with the big axe, we do not claim her. I don't think she looks Mexican at all. Then the man who's kneeling with the sombrero, I'm not sure if he has his mouth open or if he has the stereotypical Mexican mustache. Maybe it's that, and maybe he does look a little Mexican. The guy on horseback, the rest of them do not. However, the whole image has this sepia filter. It looks yellowish, which is a staple of American cinema. Like when in an American movie they travel to Mexico and it all looks yellow. You also see it in series like Breaking Bad. That's just a stereotype. and all this looks yellowish. So I think that's mostly the culprit why people think this is Mexico. It's also like in the desert with a desertic landscape, which is also a stereotype of Mexico. But if you know Mexico, you know that most places do not look like this. It's actually pretty green in Mexico. There's some places with deserts, but most of it is not like this. So what happened here? In my opinion, it looks like someone wanted to do some representation, but they didn't want to be too overt about it. So someone in charge of art direction told an illustrator or someone in charge of the art, make me some art that's reminiscent of both Mexican culture and Native American and Native Mexican culture. And I say that because of the attire of the women on top of the rock, that looks to me more like Native American than Mexican. Maybe I'm showing my ignorance here because I am not super versed in Native American culture, but to me here in Mexico, it gives me a little more that vibe, but maybe I'm crazy. And I think they just wanted to do some representation, and it was just a random choice that they chose the orcs for the Mexican type representation, and it was very bad timing because of what was happening with the orc and black people strange connection on Twitter. What do you think? Do you think these are Mexican orcs? I don't really think so, except for the little boy in the front and the guy kneeling with the sombrero. You know what? This just came to my mind. Maybe they did wanted some Mexican orcs, and they told someone who didn't really know Mexicans, but they had this stereotype in their mind from watching Breaking Bad and watching Narcos or something. And then they were, yeah, of course I can make Mexican orcs. I watched Breaking Bad, I know how to do it. And this is what we ended up with. But we also have to take into account that there are many orcs in the book, and these are the only ones that look like this. It's not consistent. Do with that information what you want. Alrighty, this is Derek, and this was Elven Tower. Thanks for watching.